Tonight we bring you a very special broadcast, a Women's History Month special. Join us as the program is already in progress. Tonight we bring you a very special broadcast, and we have with us amazing woman of God, Dr. Roxanne Brown-Robinson. And of course, we want to thank you for accepting this invitation tonight, Dr. Roxanne. And I know that we're going to talk about something that we know that has been controversial within the Black culture. But first of all, we want to introduce her, this woman of God who's with RBM International. She owns her own network, and we know that God is going to do amazing things in your life. And so we are so proud of you for your accomplishments and the things that you have done as far as working with young women. You're an amazing mentor of young women and ministry, ministering to women around the globe, I believe. And so I know that there's an amazing call of God on your life. But again, tonight we want to discuss the topic of controversy of skin color within our Black culture. And I believe it's something that we really need to talk about. It's something that we need to bring to the forefront within our own culture because of even of self-hatred, of things that we, some of us have been robbed of because the idea of superiority because of different skin tones. And so we know that there's a rainbow of skin colors and tones within our culture. And so that has impacted us, all of us, in so many ways. And I know things I've dealt with personally, but tonight Dr. Roxanne is going to talk about her experiences and what she believes she has seen about how it has impacted her personally and how the Black culture needs to overcome the idea of colorism. And so I believe that it's a spiritual thing that's connected with it. God has a way of delivering his people, and it's an area where I believe that God is going to bring deliverance. We're celebrating Women's History Month right here on Restore Living with Roslyn with Ladies of Legacy. Coming up right after this. Dr. Roxanne, we are here. We're talking about an age-old subject that's fairly common within Black culture, and so one that I'm sure will be debated for many years to come. And of course, the issue of different skin tones being considered superior. Like we said, do you believe this to be true? And what statement or comment do you have that supports that? And let's unpack, because I know we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We're so glad to have you.
Amen. Well, I'm so glad to be here once again, Roslyn. And this is a subject that's very dear and near to my heart because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, if you will. I first and foremost, if I were to define myself, I would say I'm a Black woman working in the kingdom. And you can't divert from that. However, when I know that I have to step over into the other arena of my Caucasian counterparts or my Japanese counterparts, I'm still a Black woman. Whether I'm light skinned, dark skinned, I'm still Black. My grandchildren walk through it, so I've taught them how to be proud and Black. Black lives matter, all lives matter in the kingdom, but yet this controversy where light-skinned women, if you will, have privileges that a dark-skinned woman would have. Well, again, we balance it out. We say if we're light-skinned, we might be able to get into this place over here. But as soon as people hear us talk and they recognize that we're Black, I'm not going to change my dialect or my dialogue to fit into a certain group. Because if I belong to in the kingdom, whether I'm light skinned, dark skinned, don't put labels on me to call me a red bone or mulatto girl or whatever, because my mom was light, my daddy was brown skinned, but my grandfather was dark skinned. Still can't figure it out. But in essence, at the end of the day, I'm still Black, and I'm proud to be Black.
That is right. Because, first of all, where do you believe this whole colorism issue had its origins? Because, I think a lot of Black people within a lot of our families, we have a rainbow of colors. And so where does all this has its origins? Where did it come from? And so, I think we need to dive in and just talk about it, because I feel like there's a root to it. And where did it come from? Because within our own culture, it's impacted so many negatively. And in your case, as we get into the program, you're going to talk about a little bit more. about how it has negatively impacted you. It wasn't necessarily a privilege as it was something that was used against you, whether you were trying to fit in with Black culture or even was rejected by white culture. So how has that impacted you? Where do you
Well,
think it got its origin?
yes, it's got its origin because of, and I'm reading this book. I don't know if you can see it, Roslyn. It's in
Mhm.
my soul care director's class,
Yes.
Black
Uh-huh.
Church. This is our story. This is our song.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
it originated from the fact that there were, let's keep it real. I'm sorry, I have to go there. There were house Negroes and there were field Negroes. It didn't matter
Exactly.
whether you were light skinned or black. They just chose who they wanted to go into the house. And if I could see it correctly, what I
Hmm.
saw growing up was most of the house Negroes were well poised. They were whatever. It didn't have anything to do with skin color. However, the light skinned girl, the mulatto girl, the red bone, whatever you want to call it, they did have more privileges than the dark skinned girl because the light skinned girl could go with, but let's look at Harriet Tubman. She was black
Hmm.
as coal.
Yes, she was.
She was the one that God used to take
Yes.
us out of bondage. It wasn't the
Yes.
light skinned girl. She still stayed in the house and became the house Negro or whatever.
Yes.
So we grew up with all of these stigmatisms, but the original origin came from, unfortunately, the Black church.
Oh my goodness. Oh, we're gonna. It's about to get right in here. So, do
Woo!
you believe? Oh God, I feel God in this. Okay, so
Yes.
you believe that a lot of darker skinned blacks are skewed in their thinking and that they're looked down upon by the light skin tones? And you talked about the Black church. How do you feel that that has created the stigma even within the church and how it relates to how certain skin tones may be looked down upon and what is behind that? You talk about the church as far as the issues in the church.
What the Holy Spirit revealed to me as I'm reading this book is that we don't know our history. And
Mm.
I posted a picture of my mom, my dad, my grandmother, and my auntie. And when I looked at that picture, I saw my mom, she had on an afro wig and she looked white. I saw my daddy, he was brown skinned. My grandmother was brown skinned, but my aunt was beautiful. She was
Imagine.
light skinned, gorgeous woman, right? But
Uh-huh.
in the Black church, think about it. It was the dignified Negroes, light skinned mostly, that were able to step out and do what they had to do. I could tell you about ancestors that they didn't want to, but in order for them to get into the clubs and the places they wanted to be, they were light skinned and they had to pass. I'm not passing for anybody. I'm black.
No, that is right.
And what I know now compared to what I knew then, it would still
Mhm.
remain the same.
Still
The
black. That
Black
is right.
church, when we talk about our story, there
Mhm.
are many theologians that were African American and light skinned, and people thought that they had the privilege. But look at Martin Luther King.
Oh my God.
He was
Mm.
dark skinned and
Yes, he
he
was.
led a nation of people. See, it comes
Mm,
from
mm,
our
mm.
spiritual DNA, our sister
Yes.
Roslyn.
Yes.
We can pause right there. Our spiritual DNA helps us to recognize that If you think that because I'm light skinned that I had privileges, I had to fight just as much as the dark skinned girl. I had to prove myself even more because now I got to identify with my dark skinned girl in the church.
Yes.
I had to identify with the light skinned girl out of the
Yes.
church. And even
Yes.
today, we still struggle with that. It's our trigger, if you will. Skin color has nothing to do with it. It's what's in us, our DNA.
Yes, and God, that's the thing. God is not concerned with what color we are, as much as He is developing us, taking us to the next level.
Yeah,
And like you were saying, Dr. King, God raised him up, dark skinned man, and God used him. And so the one thing that I believe that there's a lot of internalized hatred and trauma
absolutely.
from all of this. Um, it's an internalized hatred that Black people have of themselves, of the idea times of feeling that they are less than some of them. So how do you feel like that's impacted as far as the trauma that's been, you think it's been passed down through generations, and how it's impacted us as a people, even within our own culture?
Absolutely. And embrace who you are,
Mm,
knowing that at the end of the day, you might be Black. No, let me rephrase that. You are Black.
hmm
And Black comes in different shades and colors. And this is what Henry Louis Gates talks about in his book, how whether we're light, whether we're Black, no matter what we are, when we come into the fruition of who we are. Oh, I'm going somewhere with this
Oh,
thing.
I feel this. I feel this for.
Um,
Oh God,
it
hallelujah.
doesn't matter. When we walk into a room, we're supposed to disrupt the room. You were
Yes.
supposed to exuberate power and authority based on how you were raised. It's not my fault. I'm not going to apologize, Roslyn, for how I was
No.
raised. No matter how far we have come, like Henry Louis Gates says, President Barack Obama still had to prove that he was a bad Black boy.
He sure did. He sure did.
And Michelle was chocolate as she could be. But
He
guess
sure
what?
was.
Michelle was raised right. It comes with our
Yes.
upbringing.
Yes.
So light versus dark. Yeah, the stigmatism is still there in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to come in. They didn't come in braggadocious. They simply came in representing what they were taught. Yeah, Obama, they had to bring out, oh, Obama's mom was white. What's that got to do with anything? He's still a Black man.
Yes. And see, the thing about it is, it's about us embracing our Blackness as we begin to close here. What can we do as a culture? God is bringing us together for us to be unified and
Yes.
to bring a positive array of hope. What would you say to our viewers tonight as
Just
we close
become
out?
unhindered and unhitched. Look in the mirror and really just embrace who you are. When you look at yourself, whether you see yourself light skin, dark skin, Black as coal, like my great grandfather was, or light as whatever, like my other great grandfather on the other side of the spectrum, just look at yourself. Take your phone out, take a selfie, and say, wow, I love who I am. And when you
Yes.
begin to embrace that, it doesn't matter if you're light skinned or dark skinned. When God gives you power and authority to walk into any room, you have the authority and the power to do it when you embrace who you are.
Let us continue to blaze the trails and walk the pathways of our ancestors, and let us remember to keep the dream alive. From all of us here at the Restore Living with Roslyn show, thank you for watching.
Thank you for visiting the Well Bookstore so that you'll never thirst again. Support Roslyn's ministry by purchasing one of her 5-star rated books now available on Amazon.